Hello everyone, I'm Axelsims, and today we're going to be reading some fanfiction. This one was requested. It is called The Philly's Pleasure by Yami Merrick, 1994. I'm not going to be telling the person who requested it because I don't remember the name and because, anonymous, and maybe they don't want me to say who they are, and so people are like, oh my god, you have a shit taste in fanfiction, or oh my god, you know the best fanfiction in the world, and I don't know. Some people prefer to stay anonymous. I'm not going to care. This is MLP fanfiction. Description: Twilight wants her friends to be happy no matter what, especially at her second sleepover. Can she use her knowledge of magic to cheer up a depressed Fluttershy? With an old book of magic, anything is possible. Twilight X Fluttershy Yuri. Okay, so it's Yuri. M for mature, English, lots of words. Guessing this is my first MLP Lemon fic out there. I took the liberty of adding it to the archive myself. Just loved the show and was a little surprised to see there was none on here. Lemon is Yuri. I do believe Lime is Yaoi. I was going to make this a one shot, but figured the story would be better if I separated it out into more than one chapter. Oh, fuck. How many chapters is this? Oh, it's only 4. Okay, that's not too bad. Alright. We'll probably won't do them all at once. We'll probably just do this over time. Okay, you did blah blah blah, don't own anything, yada yada yada. Extra pillows, check. S'mores, check. Blankets, check. Twilight went over each item set out on the table, checking them off one by one when she came to it on the list. Graham crackers, chocolate and marshmallows for the s'mores, along with 6 sticks for her and the girls were in their own separate stack. Extra pillows and blankets were in a pile next to the table. The Slumber 101 book lay open at the table's edge. Flashlights, check. Facial cream and cucumbers. You're going camping. Why do you need facial cream and cucumbers? We're not going to a spa, are we? Twilight said to herself, checking them off with the red quill suspended by her magic. The purple unicorn was so excited. This was going to be the best second slumber party, and even better than the last. Considering how much fun she had with Applejack and Rarity, just 2 of her friends, she had a feeling deep down in her gut that when all of her friends were present, the level of fun would go off the scale. Twilight made circles around the table, looking over everything she collected, even through all the boxes. All the boxes were checked off. She wanted to make certain that everything was in order for the sleepover. If Rarity and Applejack didn't get another fight, then nothing could ruin this. How are those invitations coming along? Spike, almost done, her baby dragon assistant replied. His quill scratching the paper. Just need to finish Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy's invitations. Twilight sighed softly at hearing Fluttershy's name. Though none of these disastrous events were really her fault, she still felt guilty about what happened at the Grand Galloping Gala. They could all sit and laugh about it like it was the funniest thing in Equestria, but Twilight wished things could have gone better. After all, Rarity discovered the love of her life was nothing but a pompous, jackass, to put it lightly. That's kind of an understatement. That alone could be a lot for a girl to handle. The ever so boisterous Pinkie Pie didn't have as much fun partying either. Considering how upset she was when they didn't come to her party, it was very surprising she didn't blow up with the lack of festivities that she was expecting. But Fluttershy, Twilight had never seen her that upset, raising her voice so loud, ear-splitting yell, her sweet, gentle visage distorted into an angered, almost crazed expression. It was something you never really expected to see on a pony like Fluttershy. In a way, it actually saddened Twilight Sparkle a little to see one of her best friends so upset, because none of the animals would love her. Them feels, bro. Them feels. And actually, no. It's always the quiet ones you gotta watch out for. Everything alright, Twilight? The Lavender Dragon asked from the podium. The Lavender Dragon. Sounds like that should be a business or something. Or a porn name. The Lavender Dragon. The unicorn looked up at him and let a soft smile curl up over her snout. Say nodded. I'm fine, Spike, just fine, she said in an assuring voice, not wanting him to worry about everything. Spike, if it's not too much trouble, could you hand those invitations to me? Oh, could you deliver the invitations for me? My bad, I read that wrong. Spike set his cooldown after signing the last invitation. Each one was signed with Twilight's signature. Spike memorized it after practicing hundreds of times. It came in handy if Twilight couldn't write or sign something herself, but it also got the baby dragon in trouble a few times with Rarity and the others. Ah, Twilight, do you know how long that will take me? Spike protested without trying to complain, by complaining, as hard as that sounded. Everyone's houses are so far apart. How are you supposed to get to Rainbow Dash's house, is my question. Twilight sighed and shook her head. Spike, what am I going to do with you? Don't you know you can't fly? Twilight mumbled silently. Then could you use your breath to send them? Spike looked down at the leathers, sorting them through and setting them on the stack of the podium. Oh no, I've only been able to send them to Princess Celestia. I'm not sure if it'll work. Well, go ahead and try, Twilight said. You won't know until you try. Spike sighed and nodded, rolling up one of the scrolls and holding it up in front of him. His claw had held it in place, his eyes fixated on the rolled-up parchment. Twilight could see a look in his eyes that told he was thinking. About what, she wasn't sure, but she'd never seen Spike do that. Thinking. He took his usual deep breath, puffing out his chest, and breathed a small plume of green fire. The scroll doesn't disintegrate in the fire. The only thing that was completely different than many times he sent messages this way was the green shifting into a tan hue before floating out the windows to the receiver of the scroll. So it went from green to tan? I guess it worked, Spike said, shrugging and looking at Twilight. Having seen Spike do that a million times, she noticed it right off. Whose invitation was that, Spike? The baby dragon looked through the stack of paper. Fluttershy's! The smoke was tan, matching Fluttershy's coat to a T. It's yellow, not tan. Hopefully it would reach her no problem. If Celestia received the invite, it would seem kind of awkward, but nonetheless easy to explain. How did you do that, Spike? Spike rolled up his next scroll in his claws. I just, pictured Fluttershy's house in my mind instead of Princess Celestia's palace. I'm not really sure how it worked, but it did. Twilight giggles. You're full of surprises, aren't you, my little slave fax machine? Thank you, Spike. I think this sleepover could really cheer Fluttershy up. Spike nodded and smiled at her. No problem making me work harder and, abuse my powers to the fullest, Twilight. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. The scales in his cheeks flushed a bit red. He always felt a bit warm on the inside when Twilight would giggle like that. The purple unicorn was so sweet, he couldn't possibly imagine growing up and living with someone else after knowing her for this long. Twilight checked out the equipment, and he sent out the next letter. The pink pie, as indicated by the fire, turning into a bright pink before drifting out the window. Only problem with this is green magic, green fire. Celestia has green hair, but she also has. It wanted to be more like green, blue, pinkish. And whatever. Twilight jiggled over the flashlight of her mouth, tapping in against the hoof. Darn, I think this flashlight needs batteries. She flipped the cap off to verify, dumping the contents onto the round table. One of the dark blue cylinders rolled onto the floor with a heavy and residual bump. I thought I increased the life of those batteries, Twilight sighed and smiled and laughed slightly. I guess I do need to do a little bit more reading. Yeah, I got it right. Twilight Spiker recently bought a book on how to boost the life of magic-powered batteries. Batteries that ran out of magic didn't last very long due to the lack of consistent magic flowing through them to keep them running. Twilight wanted to make this last for years. The blue coloring was a sort of side effect of the magic used on them, which also indicated the energy was depleted. She was skilled in magic, but this book was only published very recently. New magic and spells had their flaws and needed a lot of improvement before they could be fully relied and used without issues. I think I saw some extra batteries in the basement, Spike spoke up. He sighed. Spike spoke up. Spike spoke. He sighed softly to himself as he sent off the next invite to none other than Rarity. She'll never love me. Twilight moved the batteries to the shelf for later use. She could practice that later when she didn't have a sleepover planned. She had 2 extra flashlights in case the Pegasus ponies happened to miss another scheduled rain and had to make up for it. She would be prepared in case of another bad storm coming and the power went out. Better safe than sorry. I never understood that either. She lives in the tree. Power. Sounds like a fire waiting to happen, if you ask me. Alright, I'll be right back. Twilight headed to the basement door. Yeah. And the back of the treehouse and clopped down the stairs. After flipping the lights on, she could see, of course. Recently, Twilight had set up extra bookshelves in the basement that lined the circular wall, some space left open in between a few decorations and a big gray trunk. She was running out of room upstairs to keep her expanding supply of books. We all know that Twilight loves books, collecting them, reading them, losing herself in the knowledge and wisdom. The minute she opened a book, she could not stop reading until she learned and absorbed all it had to offer. kinky. Also, we went from okay to now we're breaking the fourth wall. Well, I mean, we're not really breaking the fourth wall. And it's like, why did we all know Twilight loves books. Okay, what's this for? Twilight hooves clicked on the stone floor, and she smiled to herself as she looked around her new, slightly finished library. Some of her older books were kept down here to protect them from the sunlight. That could cause the wording to fade if she wasn't careful. Twilight would die if if this happened to any of her precious books. Twilight took a deep, wanting to smell the air of the basement. Took a deep what? Wanting to smell the air, took a deep breath, wanting to smell the air of the basement, and inhaled a bunch of dust that made her cough and choke. She blushed, happy that no one was around to see that, and her dust fetish. The center of the tall basement, a table sat on a big rug, soft and almost plushy under her hooves. Books and other knickknacks, like the usual parchment and quill, were among the things resting on the wooden table, but alas, no batteries. Damn it, Twilight said hard. The flashlight floating beside her. Where could they be? Other than the big trunk besides two shelves, there really weren't any other place for them to be stored. So she unlocked the trunk with the key attached to the lock by a little string and opened it. That doesn't really make much sense. Why would you lock something if you're just going to tie this key right next to it? Alright. This was the only storage container that had a lock and key, so she thought it would be a bit fun to use it. Twilight rested her front hooves on the rim of the opening, looking in and at the different thing in it. The trunk had been here since she moved in months ago, apparently left by the previous owner, but she never really found the time to go through exactly what was in it. She and Spike threw a few things in here every now and then, but it really didn't hurt to see what else was in here, in before Tentacle Monster. Twilight moved a few things around, taking care of the bigger stuff that she could get in her way and setting them aside. Some of the things in the box include party favors, a few folded-up chairs, not wanting to damage the research, documenting every single star that she saw, bottles of ink, extra quills, until she finally found what she was looking for. Yes, there you are, Twilight cheered happily, lifting them up and putting them in the flashlight. She doesn't even say if there are batteries or not. She tested it out, the light nice and bright now that she had what she came for. She decided to go back upstairs, but her natural curiosity got the better of her, and she stuck her head back into the trunk. And before Tentacle Monster. The contents got older as she dug further down. Once she and Spike's things were out of the way, she didn't recognize anything in the chest. Sealed and slightly yellowed envelopes dated a long time ago, empty vials with some cracks along the necks, frayed and broken quills no longer useful, just old items, things she couldn't really find use for. She was about to give up looking through it before she discovered something at the very bottom of the trunk, and she almost had a heart attack. A cheerful heart attack, sitting down there, taking up the left side of the book. Oh, yay, how lucky am I? Twilight said cheerfully, lifting it up. Imagine how old this is. The pages were just as yellowed as the envelopes that she found, and looking at from the side, and not more than the envelopes, so it had to be fairly old. Twilight looked for a date on the front and back cover, but no such thing was printed. Regardless, she smiled. She loved old books, and they always had the most wisdom to give to an anxious reader like herself. She set it down carefully on the floor, like a sacred, very fragile artifact, and examined it. The title was nice and clear, with only slight lightning. Advanced Magic, it said. Read. Twilight felt her excitement burst drastically as she practically did a Pinkie Pie hop for joy. Advanced Magic! Oh, this is so great! Now that she was so glad she didn't go back upstairs when she did. Even though the title had managed to avoid the threat of fading, the author's name didn't have as much luck. It was almost entirely gone. The only thing that ever showed there, used to be a name printed on a leather cover, was the word Hooves. Near the end of the right side. Dr. Hooves. No. Not knowing where to start, with all the excitement filling her young pony body, she flipped to the first page, and to her surprise and dismay, the introduction was written in an ancient equestrian language. She felt her hopes practically drop. Finding this old book of magic, not being able to read it, Twilight flipped through the next few pages where the introduction continued, still in the same language. It wasn't until she reached the table of contents that it was actually written in Marte Equestria Word. That brought a lot of stress off her. She looked down the long list of pages, one after the other. A lot of these she had never heard before: Cursebreaker, Philosopher's Stone, Carmine, Gemmis Infinitum, Cure Wakefulness, etc. The list went on, but the further she went down, the stronger they got. Hoof Paralysis, Spell of Detachment, Locust Call, Endless Draught. Twilight craned her head up, looking down curiously at the tome sitting at her hooves. She hadn't even taken one look at the inner pages, and already the fact that this was an old book was already obvious. But that didn't mean she wasn't still curious. This book had at least an extent of 700 pages, one spell printed on each page according to the table of contents, sometimes two, depending on the complexity of the magic. Let's start here, Twilight said to herself as she lifted a portion of the mass of pages up and turned it to a random section of the book. On its page titled Scorpio Extermination, referring to a species of giant scorpions that live down in the desert. They are very rare, yet very deadly arachnids. One sting and unless you had an antidote right then and there, you could pretty much sign your death certificate. Scorpios were a very hardy creature and could hold up their own against large amounts of magic. So the fact that this had magic that could exterminate them amazed her. That face when you are a Scorpio. Scorpio Extermination, Horn Rejuvenation, Calm a Restless Dragon. This was in my basement the whole time? This was in my basement the whole time! A lot of these spells didn't require reading off any magical keywords or mixing a portion together like older charms had centered around. Rather relaxing your body and mind, using deep focus. Somehow, through enough concentration, the book could aid you. As the only few words in modern Equestria said, it took some hard finding, but she finally found a part that wasn't in ancient words. Focusing your mind on the targeted person or thing, and the book's magic would transfer to you. The effects of the spell would then go to the target. Twilight could guess, after doing research on magic from the earlier eras, that this must have been the time that time magic became more revolutionized. Oh, around the time magic became more revolutionized. My bad. Oh my god, this is just taking bloody forever. I don't even know why I have my webcam on this one. I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm just gonna lay down here and make myself comfortable. Here I am, just ruining everything. Okay. I cut my finger. Yes. Twilight ran her hoof over the title of one of the pages. The ink was a dark blue, almost purple or black, possibly written using the juice of daiquiri berries, which only grew in the deepest parts of the ever-free forest. Maybe Zecora would know a bit about it. She was so deeply enticed by the contents of the book that she nearly ripped out a page when she heard Spike's voice yell out, telling her he was done. Okay, Spike, I'm done, Twilight called back, carrying the book and the flashlight upstairs, reading the book even as she closed the basement door behind her. All finished, Spike said with a smile, the last letter drifting out the window, the flame of light blue color. I think it worked. I'm pretty good, aren't I? He waited for praising words from the purple unicorn, hoping he would hear her tell him how much of a great assistant he was, but they never came. Her face was hidden behind the navy blue book, and he would continue to be a slave fax machine for the rest of his life. Twilight! Spike knocked on the book like a door and still got no response. He pulled the book down from her face. Twilight! Twilight jumped back, squeaking in surprise. Huh? You sure you're okay, Twi? She took a deep breath and nodded, pulling the book from his paws, setting it on the table. Sorry, Spike, I just found this really old book in the trunk of the basement. Spike lifted the front cover. Advanced Magic by, Ooze? Nah, it's the Ooze. I think it was supposed to be Hooves. Twilight said, the book is so strange and amazing. It has so many spells and other magic that I've never even heard of. Spike flipped through the book, and by the look on his face, he clearly didn't understand what he was reading, and not that Twilight really had much more of a better idea. You're pretty smart. Twilight, you can understand all this? Twilight bit her bottom lip and started looking through the book. When Spike went back to the podium, well, only some of them. Spike, I was wondering. She smiled at him delicately. Would you mind? I don't know, I'm leaving tonight. Twilight, what are you doing? The dragon looked up for her from behind the podium. No, come on, Twilight, why can't I stay here? I told you, Spike, the sleepover is for girls. Oh, right, I thought they were camping for some reason. I am silly. I told you, Spike, the sleepover is for girls only. Well, he was wearing a fucking apron, come on. She knew the young and male dragon just wanted to stay so we could get a peek at whatever Rarity would be doing, or parts of Rarity. Ha ha! And even though it wasn't a complete secret that he was in love with her, he wasn't willing to share every single thought and feeling he had about and for the white unicorn. Spike sighed and groaned. Okay, Twilight, you win. I'll just spend the night at Canterlot. It's so easy to get there now, apparently. Spike's night would mostly consist of an all-nighter at the donut shop, and then spending the rest of it at Princess Celestia's palace. Twilight smiled. Happy Spike was a good sport about it. With him taken care of now, she could have a nice evening alone with her friends. Yeah. However, Fluttershy was still a concern on her mind. Twilight was always concerned about her friends when they were unhappy, and she wanted to help them no matter what. She hoped Fluttershy might have gotten over it on her own, but in case she didn't, she wanted to find some way of helping her. Oh, Fluttershy, how can I help you, my dear friend? Twilight thought of her to herself as she looked through the book. A sleepover might be able to cheer her up, but Fluttershy was known to be even more shy and nervous than she already was, so she might be a bit distant during the night. As Twilight flipped the pages, she realized, alcohol! No, maybe the book can help! Twilight smiled to herself as she looked through the book, till she came across something that sounded like it might be able to help. Twilight sighed slightly. It might take an hour or two. Might take an hour or two. Maybe even more to look for something that would cheer up the sweet, quiet pony. Olden magic had advantages to modern-day magic. Twilight hoped that this included lifting the spirits of the targeted individual. She also hoped that invitation reached her. Why not talk to Cadence about this? Oh, right, this was where in, Season 1, wasn't it? Twilight never underestimated Spike's abilities before, but he wasn't perfect. When you get down to it, who was ever perfect in any aspect? I hope you like this so far. It'll get better, I promise. I hope to get to the lemon soon. How far are we? It's 21 minutes and we haven't even got to the sex? Seriously? 21 minutes! Holy shit! Okay, alright, we're ending it here. We will continue this. So, thoughts. Wow. That was some bullshit. It wasn't bad. There wasn't very many spelling errors. I want more. There's not much to grade on. I mean, other than the whole Canterlot in one day thing. And the thing that later on you could just use OC Pony to help. Oh no, that was love though, not cheer friends up. You think Pinkie Pie would have already fixed that problem? I mean, isn't that kind of her job? I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they're taking it as sadness. I mean, come on. I was thinking, oh, that bitch Cray Cray! Get away from her! Maybe I just... Plots... It's decent so far. They're not out of character. The characters are, in character. The plot's believable. The book was kind of silly. That one part where she was all like, oh, we all know how Twilight is. She loves books. No shit. That wasn't necessary. There's really not much I can say that's bad about this. There's not much that's bad about this. It's a decently written fanfic so far. Now, not much of a hook. I can definitely say that I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, okay, get to the good point. What am I reading this for? It needs more attention grabbing other than just Fluttershy might be depressed. Twilight found a book. Might help. It had nothing to do with mind bending or nothing dark. It was silly things like Scorpio extermination. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it could work on the attention grabbing. I'll just say that. We'll just leave it at that. It could work on the attention grabbing. Other than that, it's a bit long, but that's okay. That's not necessarily bad. And hopefully the next few chapters will be pretty good. like I said, this isn't bad. Characters pretty well drawn. Nothing out of character, nothing bad. Everything was pretty decent. I'm disappointed actually. I really expected really bad stuff or really like amazing stuff. This is like okay, it's okay. That's all I can say. It's okay. I expected terrible, horrible. Oh my god, this is horrifyingly bad. Or and it's like, oh, it's decently written. It's like a decently written fanfic introduction. Kind of wish there would, you know, I, hey, we're 1/4 through it, all right. I mean, that's better than nothing. Other than the whole Candlelight in One Night episode part, like, how the fuck? I mean, granted, Twilight has teleportation magic, so that kind of makes sense that she could just do that. But I don't think she's ever teleported with anyone else, so that'd be a bit of a stretch, but not too bad. Regardless, it's not important. I'm Axelsims. Good night, everyone. This was the Philly's Pleasure, which doesn't really make sense for its title because Philly is supposed to be the equivalent of a young girl. Mare would be. I have not seen the reason for the title yet, and for a title that wasn't really hooking anyway, more, oh god, what is this? Relatively left unimpressed, or, like I said, could be worse. Good night, everyone. Good night, and Godspeed.